Before we begin, if you believe relationships aren't destroyed by hatred but by silence, if you've ever walked away from someone you love just to avoid saying something you can't take back, then this story is for you. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and stay with me until the very end, because what begins as a storm on a cold Vermont night becomes something far deeper. A story about pride, fear, love, and the courage it takes to come back home. Now let's begin. Daniel Hart never imagined that a simple disagreement could push him out into the cold. Yet there he was, driving through sheets of freezing Vermont rain, windshield wipers thrashing desperately against the downpour, visibility barely stretching beyond the hood of his truck. The roads were slick with forming ice. Fog crept low across the highway like a living thing. Inside the vehicle, the heater coughed out inconsistent bursts of lukewarm air. His fingers gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles had turned pale. But the storm outside wasn't the real reason he could barely breathe. It was the silence in his chest. It had started with something small, or at least it seemed small at first. A comment, a sigh, a misunderstood tone. But small things, when ignored long enough, ferment. They don't disappear. They grow. And tonight, months of unspoken frustrations had erupted. Emily's words had cut deeper than she intended. Daniel's response had been sharper than he realized. And somewhere between pride and pain, he had walked out before the argument could become something irreversible. I just need air, he'd told himself. But air felt impossible to find. It wasn't really about the dishes, or schedules, or bills, or the forgotten grocery list. It was about something harder to name. Distance. Emily had accused him of being emotionally absent. Daniel had accused her of withdrawing first. The truth? They were both right. But neither wanted to admit. Vulnerability first. Because vulnerability feels like losing. And when two people are afraid at the same time, they defend instead of confess. By the time Daniel reached the bend near the old pine forest, his chest felt tight. He pulled over, engine idling, watching rain hammer against the windshield. His reflection stared back at him. He looked exhausted. Not angry. Just tired. Tired of feeling like every conversation turned into a scoreboard. Tired of guessing what she needed. Tired of not knowing how to fix something he didn't fully understand. He tried driving again. The truck slid slightly on a patch of forming ice. That's when he realized something. He couldn't make it home. Not physically. And maybe not emotionally either. There was one place nearby. Margaret's cabin. Emily's mother. The idea felt strange. Almost shameful. What kind of husband runs to his mother-in-law after an argument? But Margaret had always possessed a quiet steadiness. She listened more than she spoke. And when she did speak, her words didn't bruise. Daniel hesitated at the fork in the road. Then he turned left. At Margaret's cabin sat nestled among tall fir trees, its windows glowing softly against the storm. When Daniel pulled up, he sat there for a moment, engine off, rain drumming against the roof. He suddenly felt foolish. Like a grown man hiding from his own marriage. But before he could change his mind, the front porch light brightened. The door opened. Margaret stood there, silver hair neatly tucked behind her ears, cardigan wrapped around her shoulders. She didn't look surprised. Just concerned. She stepped onto the porch without an umbrella, and motioned him forward. You're soaked, she said gently as he approached. No interrogación. No accusación. Just care. She ushered him inside, closing the door firmly against the cold. The warmth of the fireplace wrapped around him instantly. The scent of lavender and cedarwood filled the air. For the first time that night, Daniel exhaled fully. Margaret handed him a towel and motioned him toward the hearth. He sat heavily in the armchair. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. Only the crackling of firewood filled the silence. Finally, she asked softly, storm outside or storm inside? Daniel let out a weak, humorless laugh. Both. And then it came out. The argument. The drifting. The feeling that no matter what he said, it wasn't enough. The fear that maybe Emily no longer saw him the same way. Margaret listened without interruption. She didn't rush to defend her daughter. She didn't take sides. She simply absorbed his words. When he finished, she placed a hand on his shoulder. You did the right thing coming here, she said quietly. Sometimes distance prevents damage. He nodded, but he still felt hollow. Margaret stood after a while. I'll prepare the guest room. Daniel almost protested, but exhaustion pinned him in place. She returned 10 minutes later frowning. The guest room is under renovation, she explained. And the old couch finally gave up this morning. Daniel blinked. I'll just head back. You won't, she interrupted firmly. There's a storm. You're staying. He shifted uncomfortably. That only leaves my bedroom, she finished calmly. He froze. That's not appropriate. Margaret smiled softly. You are like a son to me, and I will not let you freeze because pride feels more comfortable than warmth. He didn't argue again, because deep down he didn't have the strength. The bedroom was simple. Warm lamplight, handmade quilts, lavender sachets resting on the nightstand. Margaret arranged pillows between them with practical ease, creating respectful space. Daniel sat stiffly at the edge of the mattress. He felt awkward, out of place. But Margaret sensed it. You look like someone carrying too much alone, she said gently. And that sentence broke something open inside him. I don't know how to reach her anymore, he admitted. Every time I try, it feels like I say the wrong thing. Margaret studied him thoughtfully. Do you speak to win, or to understand? The question lingered. He didn't answer immediately. Because he wasn't sure. As wind battered the cabin walls, Margaret spoke quietly. Emily has always feared being too much, she said. Too emotional. Too demanding. Too sensitive. Daniel's brow furrowed. She feels like she's failing you. The words hit him hard. Failing me? I'm the one who feels shut out. Margaret nodded. That's what fear does. It creates mirrors instead of windows. He stared at the ceiling. Had they both been reacting to imagined rejection? Had pride replaced honesty? Hours passed. The storm raged. Then suddenly, a knock. Sharp. Urgent. Daniel's heart leapt. He knew. Margaret rose without surprise. When she opened the door, Emily stood there drenched, cheeks flushed from cold, eyes swollen from crying. Relief and guilt collided in Daniel's chest. She stepped inside hesitantly. I was scared, she whispered. Not angry. Scared. Margaret squeezed her daughter's shoulder. I'll give you two space. And then she disappeared down the hallway. The fire crackled softly between them. Daniel stepped closer. I shouldn't have left. Emily shook her head. I shouldn't have said what I said. Silence hung there. But this time, it wasn't hostile. It was vulnerable. I've been afraid, she confessed. Afraid that I'm not enough for you. Afraid you'll realize you deserve someone less complicated. Daniel's throat tightened. I've been afraid too, he admitted. Afraid you were pulling away. Afraid I was losing you and didn't know how to stop it. They stared at each other. And in that moment something shifted. The argument hadn't been about dishes. It hadn't been about tone. It had been about two people silently fearing they were unloved. And neither had known how to say it. Early morning. The rain slowed to a gentle drizzle. Margaret insisted Emily take the bed. Daniel moved to the sofa downstairs. He watched the fire's last embers glow faintly. For the first time in months, he felt clarity. Love hadn't disappeared. It had been buried under fear. And fear thrives in silence. Emily joined him outside just after sunrise. The air was crisp, washed clean by the storm. They stood on the cabin steps, hands intertwined. No grand promises. Just small ones. I'll speak sooner, she said. I'll listen longer, he replied. Margaret watched from the window, pride softening her features. When she finally stepped outside, she offered only one piece of advice. Storms don't destroy strong foundations. They reveal where repairs are needed. As Daniel and Emily left the cabin, sunlight broke through the clouds. The same road that had felt dangerous hours before now seemed calm. Nothing about the world had changed dramatically, but something inside them had. They weren't perfect. They weren't suddenly fearless. But they were honest. And honesty is stronger than pride. Relationships don't end because of one argument. They weaken because of accumulated silence. Because two people choose self-protection over vulnerability. That night, a storm forced Daniel to pause. It forced Emily to confront fear. It forced both of them to choose courage instead of ego. And sometimes, that's all love needs. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever faced a storm in your own relationship, remember that silence builds walls, but honesty builds bridges. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share it with someone who might need to hear this today. Because sometimes, the storm outside is just an invitation to calm the storm within.